Senator Copeland reintroduced the bill in January 1937. In 1931, the Supreme Court decided case Federal Trade Commission v. Ralladam Company and held that the Commission could not issue a cease and desist order against false advertising unless injury to competition were shown. New provisions defined false advertisement, food, drug, device, and cosmetic, and declared the dissemination of false advertising to constitute an unfair or deceptive practice. Under the FTC Act, and authorized the commissions to secure a temporary restraining order to enjoin the dissemination of a false advertisement, giving the FTC the same powers as the FNDA. Then the elixir sulfanilamide struck. There is no guarantee that any of the previous versions of the bill would have prevented the disaster. The FNDA intervention was based on fact that the drug was misbranded. The solvent used was diethylene glycol rather than alcohol. Therefore, the product could not be labeled as elixir. Moreover, the harmful component diethylene glycol was not listed on the label at all. The next version of the bill forbade the introduction into interstate commerce of any drug not generally recognized as safe for use. Advertising provisions of the Senate bill were eliminated. Otherwise, most of the changes made for a stronger law. The bill was finally signed into law by President F.D. Roosevelt on June 25, 1938. The bill introduced numerous changes. Definition has changed to include drugs and devices designed to affect bodily structure or function where disease is not involved, and devices used in the diagnosis and treatment of disease. The definition of adulterated product changed, forcing manufacturers to either adopt the USP standard or cease calling their products drugs. Misbranding portion preserved the original definition of labeling that was false or misleading in any particular. The 1912 Shirley Amendment required product labeling to be both false and fraudulent. This was very difficult to prove even when outrageous claims were made for inefficient nostrums. The most important amendments included the obligation to include a warning for habit-forming drugs, and to disclose all ingredients, not only those listed in the U.S. Pharmaceutical. Moreover, all drugs had to be equipped with adequate directions for safe use, including limitations and contraindications. New provisions on antiseptics, containers, packaging, and labeling were added. The new law also made new drugs subject to FDA review and approval. Applications had to be filed in order to approve a new drug for marketing. An effective application could be suspended if the drug was found to be unsafe or if the application contained untrue material statements. In 1951, the Congress passed the Durham-Humphrey Amendment, which required certain drugs to be prescription only. The Kefauver-Harris drug amendments of 1962 was a reaction to the thalidomide disaster. Firms now had to provide substantial evidence of effectiveness for the product's intended use, in addition to proof of safety. That evidence had to consist of adequate and well-controlled studies. This was a revolutionary requirement. In addition, the FDA now had to approve any new marketing application. The amendments also formalized good manufacturing practices, established rules for investigational products, and transferred the regulation of prescription drug advertising from the Federal Trade Commission to the FDA. In 1966, the Fair Packaging and Labeling Act required all consumer products in interstate commerce to be honestly and informatively labeled. The 1970 and 1972 amendments introduced new requirements on information for patients and demanded a package insert to be part of drug labeling. In October 1982, 7 people died from poisoning after ingesting Tylenol capsules laced with cyanide. In response to this incident, the FDA issued tamper-resistant packaging requirements. A tamper-resistant package has one or more indicators or barriers to entry that, if breached or missing, can give consumers visible evidence of tampering. The Federal Anti-Tampering Act was passed in 1983, making it a crime to tamper with packaged consumer products. The Act introduced fines and long jail terms for those who, with reckless disregard for risk to another person's death or injury, tamper with consumer products that affect interstate or foreign commerce. Tampering with consumer products also includes rendering materially false or misleading labeling. Fines and jail terms also applied to attempts in situations where no actual injury occurred. Different motivations of tampering with consumer products are reflected in this law also, and cover any tampering motivated by intent to cause injury to other person's business, unsubstantiated public scares, and threats.